Hey, Bulls and Bears, back with another dose of economic reality. Wow, Super Bowl tickets have doubled. We've got massive layoffs coming out of PayPal, UPS announcing layoffs. So, a lot to talk about on the economic front and consumer spending and what consumers spend their money on. That's part of the whole financial picture. So, we're going to talk about the Super Bowl ticket prices from last year. How are people affording this? It's crazy. Let's go ahead and start right here with an announcement out of we have PayPal cutting 9% of its global workforce. That's coming up to about 2,500 jobs. The cuts will affect both existing roles and job listings that PayPal had planned to hire. So, what's going on with PayPal? Uh, Quote, across our organization, we need to drive more focus and efficiency, deploy automation, and consolidate our technology to reduce complexity and duplication. So not only are they laying people off, if you listen to what the CEO said, they need to deploy more automation. What does that mean? That means getting rid of more humans, more AI jobs, more algorithmic processing of payments and things like that. PayPal has a lot of competition now, especially with other pay apps out there. There's too many other ones now. PayPal is kind of old school. I remember PayPal back when I first started doing eBay back in like the late '90s. PayPal was the only option as far as I remember. But now there's just so many different apps on your phone. PayPal is just one of the C payment processor companies to go with. But we're going to see a big push towards more AI and more ways to eliminate jobs. Not just because the economy is bad, but because the cost of living is so high. It's now much more advantageous to find technology to replace humans because humans are demanding more and more pay, higher pay. Look at all the strikes that have been happening over the last couple of years. Pretty much every industry had some sort of strike. I remember a walkout in Vegas. The casino workers walked out. Either that was 2022 or 23. A lot of the delivery companies, we saw UPS, we saw, of course, hospital workers, automobile workers. We saw strikes everywhere. And it's no coincidence that these strikes are really happening a lot more now. It's because people need more pay because the cost of living is too high and it's not coming down. So, speaking of Las Vegas,
NFL champs when they face the San Francisco 49ers on February 11th. Already, this year's Super Bowl tickets are the most expensive ever on record. So, what's the price for the cheapest ticket? And how cheap is it really? CNN's Harry Enton is here. Harry, what is the least expensive ticket? And how does it compare to past Super Bowls?
Yeah, so even as we were preparing for this segment, the cheapest ticket has become more expensive on the secondary market. It is now well over $8,000 for the cheapest ticket. I don't know about you, but the idea of spending $8,000 for one ticket to one game in which my teams are not even involved, not exactly my idea.
$8,000, folks. So the question obviously comes up, who is buying this? Who are buying these tickets? Who can afford this? Well, when you have 60 to 70% of people living paycheck to paycheck, I'm going to guess that it's hardly anyone from the bottom 60 or 70% going to this game, right? This is the top 20, top 30%, and people say, wow, it's a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the top 20, 30% in a country where we have 340 million people, it's not hard to fill up a stadium of what, 60, 70,000 people with top 10, 20, 30% income earners. In fact, if you look at the share of wealth consolidated now to the very tippy top, you see that it's skyrocketed here. So we're going to talk about that here in just a few minutes. But some people are doing so well that they can spend a minimum of 8,000. Some of the better seats were going for 12, 13, $14,000. We have people out there doing so well they can waste. Well, maybe it's not a waste to them. Maybe it's worth it, but that kind of money on a game that's going to be done in a few hours. And it is Las Vegas. It is Las Vegas. So naturally, you already have a lot of people there in that area that like to throw their money away. A lot of big rollers at the casino. Las Vegas Super Bowl this year. Anyways, sports, but it does tie in with finance because people are paying a lot of money for these tickets. But I wanted to look at something else here. Let me bring this up here. And let me see if I can enlarge this here. Folks, take a look at this. This is total assets held by the top 0.1%. And if you look along the red line across the bottom here, that is average inflation. And we see what's happening with the 0.1%, exploding higher, especially since 2020. So that shows you that it was more than just supply chain disruptions. It was more than just the things that we were told. It was a lot about greed. The companies, they found a way to justify raising rates, raising their prices rather. Of course, they blamed shortages. Yes, there were shortages, but they kept these prices artificially high. So, of course, these corporations, these companies, and the people at the top of these companies, saw their wealth explode exponentially higher, while the bottom 60 or 70% again saw their worth decline, and we see the savings rate is near an all-time low right now. The question is, what can we do about it? How do we get ready for this? How do we prepare for it? I continue to prepare for more inflation, and I think my best hedge against that is going to be precious metals, specifically silver. So I'm still stacking. That's why I like to say keep stacking. If I see a price correction happening in the stock market, I'm going to go in and maybe buy a dip here and there on some very stable companies. So we're going to keep an eye on that. I do expect some pretty big things to pop off this year, 2024. Just like I talked about in our previous report, we have threats of war and global conflicts. Here's just a couple of the recent announcements. U.S. readies retaliatory strikes for drone attack by Iran-backed militants. We told you over a year ago that the U.S. is going to get more involved. We're going to have boots on the ground. We're now seeing casualties of U.S. Military forces, and it's just going to get worse, right? This is going to be, I believe, before 2024 is over, people are going to be shocked at the level of military intervention and conflicts that we're going to be involved in. I think we're going to be so concerned by the end of the year that even on U.S. soil, we're going to be afraid. And that's the type of thing that has the power to bring markets down. With all the money pumped out into the system, all the money creation, it's very difficult for something to actually bring the market down. Look at all the bad news with the layoffs, the consumers living paycheck to paycheck. That hasn't brought the markets down. Higher interest rates hasn't brought the markets down. Something like war or something similar to 2020 with the global health crisis, I think we're going to see this year unfold something much more devastating than the 2020 health crisis is going to pop off here in 2024. So I'm preparing for it. As I talked about in my last report, I sold off a bunch of stuff, a bunch of stocks, just using my spidey sense on this one. So please let me know what you think. What do you see coming up this year? It's not looking good as far as what the news is globally and these expanding wars. Let's jump into this a little bit though. UPS announcing 12,000 job cuts because package volume has declined so much. Well, then you say, well, there was record holiday spending. How could packages be declining? Well, people were spending more because everything's so much more expensive. It costs more, but they were getting less. So a lower number of packages were shipped, people buying less things, but paying more. So spending naturally increased, right? So, of course, they only want to talk about how much more people spent to make the economy look like it's doing good. But yet, a lower number of packages were sent. So, 12,000 job cuts out of UPS. And, that should be another signal. That should be another eye opener. All right, folks. So, we're going to wrap this one up here. What do you think about all this? The Super Bowl prices. Is it the top 10, 20% buying this, or are people going into debt to go to the Super Bowl? Pretty amazing, pretty shocking when you look at it, but not really when you look at the wealth and the top 10, 20, 30%, how much more money they have buying yachts, going to $10,000 sporting events, you name it. If you're in the bottom 70%, you need to get to the top 30% to live like some of these people at the Super Bowl. All right, everybody, maybe some of you are going to the Super Bowl. Please let me know down below. Maybe you did so well in stocks last year, you're going to the Super Bowl. What's your story? Like to read you in comments. Anyways, we'll talk to everybody very soon. Keep stacking. Peace.